Hey guys, welcome to Three Rivers Wrench. This is part 2 of the engine rebuild on Bear or 9C1 Nova. Yep, it's going to be several parts to this engine rebuild. There's so much to do, and I kind of want to get these videos out for you guys so you have something to chew on, so to speak. This block, as you saw earlier, right? I was cleaning and degreasing and wire wheeling and running taps and compressed air through everything, cleaning this guy out. Looks really good. It's really clean. Not clean enough to paint yet, but we'll get there. So I think this is the original block to the car. Reason being, we have receipts. Yes, amazing documentation comes with this car. Looks like maybe 25,000 miles ago, this engine was rebuilt out in California in 1989. And as you can see, it cost over $4,000 to rebuild this guy. Crazy. But the cross hatching is still looking good in the cylinder walls. The lifter bores still have cross hatching. The bearings look really good. We're gonna plastic gauge and get out our meters and measurements and the whole 9 yards. We're gonna check everything over, make sure everything's good, and it looks like we're just gonna put everything back together again. Only this time it won't be leaking oil all over the place. So let's get some tools out and start checking things. All right, so first things first, I've got a straight edge. This is a machined straight edge, and I've got a set of feeler gauges. We're gonna check the deck and make sure that it's not warped on both sides. We're gonna go cross, corner to corner, corner to corner. We're gonna use our feeler gauge. We're gonna make sure we don't have anything bigger than 3/1000ths that can fit underneath this straight edge, like in between the straight edge and the block. I think we are going to be good. I've got my 2/1000ths straight edge. Sorry, I've got my 2/1000ths feeler gauge ready. We'll go ahead and set this guy on the block. Trying to see if it will slide underneath. It is not, which is a very good sign. I'm holding this guy flat on the deck here. We're going to do the same thing to the cylinder heads. Okay, we're good that way. Now let's go corner to corner. Yeah, we're in really good shape. Kind of figured, but gotta check. Yeah, this side is good. So let's roll. Let's see if I can do this without bumping the camera. .2/1000ths feeler gauge. Yeah. Corner to corner. Yeah, no go. That is great. All right, looks good. If we could fit, a 3/1000ths feeler gauge or bigger underneath that bar, we would have to send the block out and have it machined. But again, we're in good shape. All right, I think what I want to do next is let's check our bore. Now on a 350, this bore should be 4 inches. I've got a really crude set of tools here to do this. These can be had at Harbor Freight, like $20, right? This is not really the best tool to do this, but this is just going to give us an idea if they bored this out or not. This is a telescoping bore gauge. What we're going to do is we're going to collapse it. We're going to set it into the bore, and then you twist, and it locks it in place. and then you can take a micrometer and just measure the distance. Now, the more professional tools will have, a gauge on it, and you go in and you can look at the gauge that way. I don't have that kind of tool at the shop here. Like I said, this is a very crude way of doing it, but it's going to let us know what's going on. So let me roll this a little bit, this engine, and we'll check. All right, so all I'm going to do is take this guy, kind of compress it, set it into the cylinder very carefully here. It's got nice rounded edges. It's not going to scratch our cylinder walls. We're going to try to get this guy centered. Looks pretty good. I'll lock it. I'm just going to tip it out of here. Set this down. Take my mic, turn it on. Zero this guy. Huh, look at that. You see that? Board 30 over. That's nice to know. If we were gonna do new piston rings, you need to know that. If it was 4 inches, that'd be our standard bore. But as you can see, we're bored 30 over. So I'll check the remaining cylinders, just make sure everybody's looking good, and we'll move on. Okay, as you can see, here's all the pistons laid out in order. Again, not a lot of crud in the piston grooves where the rings are. Just really nice. Main bearings are in order along with the caps. Here are the lower main bearings. They're just kind of sitting in order. We don't want to mess anything up. Don't want to screw anything up because we'll have problems down the road, and we don't want that. So I'm going to get all the oil off of every one of these bearings, and we're going to get out some plastic gauge and see how good these bearings really are. Okay guys, here's what the plastic gauge looks like. This is the green package. This measures 1 to 3 thousandths. There's a yellow, a blue, and red packages. They all have different parameters as far as what they're going to measure. Now this is going to do 1 to 3 thousandths of an inch. That's all we're going to need for this engine. Hopefully, what we do is it just looks like dental floss kind of plastic string. To use it, you don't pull it apart because it's gonna stretch it and thin it out. You want to take a razor blade and just cut off what you need. Cuts very easy. We only need a little piece like that for one of the mains. We're gonna put it in all the mains, and then put the caps back on, torque it to spec, and we'll take it apart. And what this stuff does is it squishes out. It'll grow like so, and then we will use the gauge on the package to measure what the clearance is. So it'll make more sense once we get into it. So let's do this. We'll cut a few pieces. Okay, so the crankshaft's in there. Everything is dry. What you can do, and this won't hurt, is you can take a little bit of dielectric grease or Vaseline, just the tiniest bit, put it on each of your mains, just a dab, where you're gonna put your plastic gauge. That'll help hold it in place. It's not gonna hurt anything. It's not gonna screw up your measurements. All right, now I'm going to take my plastic gauge, put it right on the journal. I'll get you in here close up in a second so you can really see what I'm doing. Kind of looks like so. One there, one there, one there, and one there. Now I've got my main caps with the bearing on it. You'll notice on each of the cap there's an arrow pointing that way towards the front of the engine. So crank dampener's out here, front of the engine, arrow's pointing that way. This is the front one. I'm gonna go ahead and carefully set this in place so as not to move the plastic cage. Might have to take a dead blow, little one, and we're just gonna tap this ever so gently to seat this guy. Okay. I'm just going to use this electric impact. I'm just going to seat these guys. I'm not torquing them to spec. It's not going to over torque it. That's what I mean. Take our clicker style torque wrench, 70 foot-pounds. Okay. You don't want to move the crankshaft at this point. Don't turn it. Don't breathe on it. Don't look at it wrong. Now we go back and we loosen everything. Now it just depends. The plastic gauge may stick to the crank, or it may stick to the bearing. We'll see. This one's stuck to the bearing. You can kind of see it. Pull all these guys off. Another one stuck to the bearing. Kind of makes it easier to measure. What do you guys think? You with me? 2000s? Looks good. Simple as that. Now, all I need to do is go check all the other ones, make sure they're good, and we'll be on our way. Here's another one. Looks good. 2000s. See how 0.0015. That's not it. 0.001. That's not it. 002 looks perfect. 003, yeah, too small there. So 2000s looking good. All of them measure the same. Okay, now we know our main bearings are all good. What we're gonna do is do a final install on the crank. So I'm gonna get some assembly lube. We're gonna smear the mains really good, and then we're gonna drop the crank back in, put all the caps on, torque them to spec, and then we'll start checking those rods. All the mains are torqued to 70 foot-pounds. I went ahead and just went over them again with the torque wrench just to make sure everybody's even. You can see crank's spinning really great. All the rod journals on the crank are dry. I'm going to keep it that way because we're going to use plastic gauge. We don't want any grease or assembly lube on those. So let's start checking these rods. Okay, we're about to check rod bearing clearance on #1 cylinder. Here I have #1 piston. I know that because it's got a #1 stamped in the bottom here. Everything's dry. We've cleaned everything up. It's dry. One thing I want to go over real quick, just so we can get it out of the way, and for the rest of the assembly process, you'll know that I'm doing this, is clocking your piston rings. Now, the top ring, I have the gap facing upward. The second compression ring, I have the gap down here. So they're 180 degrees out from each other. And then the oil ring, which is a 3-piece deal, there's a bottom scraper, a top scraper, and then you get that little oil baffle in between. I have those going this way. So the bottom one, the gap is this way, and the top scraper gap is going that way. There you go. We're going to do that for the rest of the pistons. Now, this engine has been bored out 30 over, which means it got new pistons, which is kind of cool. Usually on the piston, it will say 30 over. This one says 30 over. It's stamped right into the top of it. Once I scraped all the carbon off, boom, there it was. The other thing is there's an arrow that says front, so it's pointing that way. So we're going to be going into this cylinder. I've got a couple little rubber caps on the ends here to protect the cylinder walls as we go in. I've got my handy dandy ring compressor here. This just goes on like so. And you tighten it up till it stops. Now what I'm going to do is gently, oh so gently, set that in there. And make sure my rod is not going to contact the crank accidentally and scratch anything. I'm just going to take a hammer. I'm going to use the handle end, and I'm just going to tap. There we go. We're in. Not all the way, but we're in. I'm going to roll this guy. Pull my little rubber protectors off. Okay, got my plastic gauge. I'm going to carefully set that right there. Spec on the rod bearings is 45 foot-pounds. Okay. Now let's loosen it up, and hopefully we got a good reading. All right, our spec is 0.0013 to 0.0035. It looks like we're right at 0.0015. So we are in spec. Looks good. We're on a little bit of the tighter side than the looser side, which is good. All right, to save time, I'm going to go ahead and check the other 7 rod bearings. And I'm not going to tape it because you guys don't want to watch that, right? It's just long, tedious. You got the idea. So hopefully the rest of these are okay. If I see anything that's out of the ordinary, I will let you know. But based on what we're seeing, everything's probably going to be okay. So I'm going to get going. I'll check back with you in a second. Well, as if on cue, we lost power down here. As you can see, guess what? It's raining. Yes, it's pouring down rain. But I got all the pistons installed, guys. All the rod bearings were fine, all within spec. I put all the decarboned pistons back in. We have a rotating assembly right now. It looks terrific. And I can't do much else here because I can't see unless I'm standing over next to a garage door. So let's head up to the house and we'll start reconditioning those heads. And then we'll bring those down here and bolt those on. So it is what it is, right? Can't be what it's not.